All right, everyone. Good afternoon. It is officially 12 p.m. and we're going to go ahead and get started. We have a jam-packed agenda for you today in today's forum. So, first and foremost, welcome to Anchorage Chamber of Commerce Make It Monday Forum. My name is Dan Newman. I am the CEO, founder, and principal auctioneer at Alaska Premier Auctions and Appraisals, and a member of the board of the Anchorage Chamber of Commerce Directors. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we gather today on the traditional lands of the Dena'ina Athabascans. For thousands of years, the Dena'ina have been and continue to be the stewards of this land. It is with gratitude and respect that we recognize the contributions, innovations, and contemporary perspectives of the Upper Cook Inlet Dena'ina. Thank you. I invite everyone at this time to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bless you. At this time, please silence all your cell phones, put them on vibrate or airplane mode or do not disturb. And remember, if you have to take a call during today's program, please do so outside in the lobby. I'd also like to point out the Anchorage Chamber board members in attendance and ask them to wave and be recognized. Today we have Sharon Patrick and Sky Nevada. Did I miss anyone? Wonderful. Thank you very much. The Anchorage Chamber would also like to thank Northrim Bank, our second quarter sponsors of the Make It Monday forums. Sponsors allow the Anchorage Chamber to keep providing informative and educational presentations each week. Thank you, Northrim Bank, for your support. Now I'd like to acknowledge this week's new Anchorage Chamber members. We have Garcia's Cantina and Cafe and Robert Forto. Either of those businesses in attendance here today? No? All right. Well, if you get an opportunity, please go out, reach out to them, and support other local Chamber of Commerce businesses. Remember, if you successfully refer a new member, you receive 2 free Make It Monday Forum lunches. So a little what's in it for you there. And now to introduce our head table. To my right is attorney Sam Kaysen. To his right, Todd Lindley, mechanical engineer at Alyeska Pipeline Services Company. And to his right, Dan Rogers, electrical engineer at Lucid Engineering Group. And to his right, Mark Wiggins, general manager of Cookpick Corporation. Thankfully, we have these little cards here. You can not have to play the name game later. Chugach Electric is the largest member-owned electric cooperative in Alaska, serving over 91,000 members. The utility is guided by a 7-member board of directors. For the 2024 annual election, 4 candidates are running for 2 board seats. From natural gas supply to renewable energy projects and electrical rates, there are a number of important issues on the agenda for the electric utility industry in Alaska. Today is your opportunity to hear the priorities and ideas from the candidates running for the Chugach board. There are note cards on your table. Please write down your questions and raise them high in the air at any time during the presentation. And Tasha and other staff members will be around to grab them so that we can get them sorted and ready to go for the Q&A section at the end. So now, first, I'd like to welcome Brooke Pigg to the podium for a new member presentation. Y'all can give Brooke a round of applause.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brooke, and I am the Wish and Community Advancement Manager for the Alaska office of Make-A-Wish Alaska in Washington. I've been with Make-A-Wish Alaska for almost 7 years now. And in addition to being on staff for about 7 years, I've also been a volunteer and an intern for our chapter. So hopefully I have all the ins and outs of how our chapter works. So at Make-A-Wish, nope, there it is. Our mission is simple and clear. Together, we create life-changing wishes for children with critical illnesses. And since 1986, our local chapter has granted 8,600 wishes to children in our communities. So who qualifies for a wish? Oh, it's going fast now. There we go. Children who are ages 2.5 to 18 upon referral can receive a wish. The child has to be diagnosed with a critical illness. And actually, one of the biggest misconceptions about Make-A-Wish is the child has to be terminal to receive a wish. And this is not the case, as we grant wishes to children with all life-threatening illnesses, regardless of their prognosis. And then the third one is just the child has not had to receive a wish yet. So why do wishes matter? They matter because there is power in a wish. Wishes have been proven to have a physical and emotional benefit that can give children with critical illnesses a higher chance of survival. Wishes bring kids a renewed hope as suddenly they enter a world of possibilities where the anticipation of a wish coming true empowers them to believe in better days ahead. And when a wish is granted, a child replaces fear with confidence, sadness with joy, and anxiety with hope. So at Make-A-Wish, we grant 5 types of wishes. I wish to go, like Markella, who wished to see rainbow trees in Hawaii. I wish to have, like Liam, who wished to have a backyard pathway. I wish to meet, like Braden, who wished to meet Russell Wilson. I wish to be, like Sailor, who wished to be a forest ranger in Alaska. And honestly, kind of one of my favorites, I wish to give back. Ooh, come on, there it goes. Like Kristen, who wished to have a Build-A-Bear Day for patients at her hospital where she received treatment. So right now, oh, come on. I mean, we can stay on that slide. That picture is adorable. Ooh, there we go. Right now, local wishes are waiting, and our biggest need for our office is more local volunteers. Currently, we have 61 kids who are waiting for their wish to come true in Alaska, with more kids being referred every day because critical illnesses never stop. For every wish, we assign 2 wish-granting volunteers to be the family's main point of contact for Make-A-Wish for the family. And we do this because they are dealing with so many doctors and nurses and social workers and everything. We want to make sure that this is their only point of contact for Make-A-Wish and they don't have to deal with more people than they need to. So that means we have 122 volunteer spots to make these wishes come true. But unfortunately, due to a lack of local volunteers, many of these wishes are being granted remotely right now for volunteers in Washington. And we don't want our Alaskan Wish kids to miss out on the hope that comes from knowing their local community cares about them and the joy of experiencing the local volunteers coming to meet them in person to talk about their wish coming true just because our volunteer numbers are low. So if you're interested in becoming a volunteer, you can scan this super cool QR code, which will take you to a super quick smart sheet to fill out your name and your information about becoming a volunteer. And we'll be in touch with you shortly to send along that volunteer onboarding information. It's a super easy process. The volunteer training is only about 30 minutes and it's all on demand, so you can take it in your own time. And the only other thing that you have to do is clear a background check. So super easy process to onboard. And then actually for your first 2 wishes, you'll be paired with a mentor volunteer who has extensive volunteer granting experience to help you kind of lead you through that process. And if you have any questions, you can contact me or meet up with me after this, or my email's right there. It's bpigg@akwa.wish.org. Thanks so much for your time. Thank you so much.
All right. And now, before we officially get started with the candidate forum, I'd like to welcome Julie Haskett, Senior Communications Manager of Chugach Electric, to the stage to give us details on the election dates and the annual meeting.
Thank you. And I only have one slide, so this will be easy. Just wanted to let you know that voting in the Chugach election opens this Wednesday, April 17th, and runs through May 17th. Hopefully, if you are a Chugach member, you've already received your 2 awareness emails that came from our vendor. I see nods, that's good. Survey and Ballot, they're our new vendor this year. And we send out these awareness emails, so when it's time to start voting, people will be like, okay, I've seen this, I recognize it, it's not spam. So thank you. I got mine didn't go to spam, so that was good news. Dan's nodding, so all good news. Seems like we're off to a good start. Once you vote, you won't get any more emails, but if you don't vote, you're gonna get an email once a week. But we also have early bird voting prizes. So If you vote the very first day for 4 weeks, you can potentially win a cool prize. So keep that in mind. Then on May 17th, we have both our member appreciation event and our annual meeting. They're both at Change Point like they were last year. From 3 to 6 out in the parking lot, we have bucket truck rides and vendor booths and a lunch and a power plant tours that you have to sign up for now. That's on our website, and all sorts of really fun stuff. And then at 6 o'clock inside that main commons area at Change Point is when we'll have our annual meeting. And it's at the annual meeting where we announce the winners of the election. And you have to stay all the way to the end, yes. And we have door prizes that are at the very end, yes, because I want you to stay for the entire meeting. So no bones about it. And we also are going to give away a surplus vehicle at the annual meeting at the very end. Only for those who come to the annual meeting are eligible to win. So again, come to the annual meeting from 6 to 7:30 on May 17th. You'll find out who won the election, and you might win a door prize and you might win a vehicle. A couple years ago, this lady drove home in her cute little truck and it was awesome. So anyway, those are my highlights, and please watch for those emails that will start coming on Wednesday. And now you'll get to hear from our candidates. Thanks.
Thank you so much. There you go. May 17th, clear your calendars. All right, so today's forum will introduce you to the Chugach Electric Board candidates. Welcome again, Sam, Todd, Dan, and Mark. Candidates, the person you need to know is Colette. Colette, go ahead and raise your hand up nice and high. There you go. Colette will be taking your responses, timing your responses and holding up a 15-second, that's the yellow one, and a stop warning signs. If you go past the stop one for too much longer, we'll just start clapping super loud until you stop talking. Fair? Fair. No Oscar music today. I'm so sorry. Yeah, maybe the next forum. Please keep an eye on Colette for your cues. If you do not wrap up again, they will be sending out the warnings, and then she'll be ringing the bell. Now, I'd like to give each candidate 1 minute to introduce themselves, and we'll go ahead and start with Sam.
Thank you, Dan. Is this on?
Yes.
Okay. You can read the bio of the candidates on the webpage that Julie has given you a sheet for. So I'm going to skip my growing up in Homer, my parents being small business owners and school teachers, and just try and go into a little bit more forward looking. Thank you to the Chamber for inviting us. If there's anyone who understands the importance of our electric system, it is the people who are in business for themselves. There are 3 issues that I think all of our other issues can be viewed through. And those are our abilities: reliability, affordability, sustainability. When we talk about gas supply, when we talk about Eklutna, when we talk about any other issues, those are the 3 lenses that I will examine and make my decisions based on. Thank you very much, and I look forward to getting to know you a little bit better.
Thank you, Sam. Next up, let's go with Todd.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the Chamber of Commerce for having us out here today. My name is Todd Lindley. I moved to Alaska in 2015 with ExxonMobil to help start up the Point Thompson project on the North Slope. In that time, I've served in a variety of different technical and leadership positions. I've got a 15-year career in the oil and gas industry, and as you heard, I work for Alyeska Pipeline today on various projects that cover installation of pipe and everything up to, but not yet including the main line from Prudhoe Bay down to Valdez. I'm here because we need to really kind of look at some of these decisions that we're making for the longevity and the affordability and reliability of the board. And I think I can bring a fresh perspective to the table. I do have a background in engineering and risk management, business development that I think could be very well used. And I look forward to getting to know you all today and sharing some of my experiences on the issues of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Next up, Dan.
Yeah, I'm Dan Rogers. Quick introduction. I grew up here. My folks homesteaded in South Anchorage. I went to Hanshu Service, University of Alaska for a few degrees and a couple engineering degrees and electrical engineering degrees and physics degree up there. Then went to work for Chugach as an employee right out of my graduate work in Fairbanks. Worked for Chugach for 9 years, and I went and co-founded what's now become the largest power-specific engineering firm in the state of Alaska. I sold that interest in that company at the end of 2018, so clear of any conflicts there. But I have a lot of experience in the power industry. I mean, I grew up around it. I grew up around Chugach, grew up around a lot of other utilities. So I'd like to bring that experience kind of to bear on the board because it is a unique perspective, I think. So yeah, like everybody else, look forward to talking to you guys and the other people. All of us should be interested in this and look forward to hearing what you have to say and how that melds with my ideas. So thank you. And thanks to the chamber.
Thank you, Dan. And Mark.
Thank you very much. Thanks to the Chamber for hosting us. This is a great to be able to talk to people, get to know you, and let you get to know the candidates. I came up in 1983 and with Arco, Alaska, was right across the street before the big building was there. My office was in the small building, and I was doing exploration and work in Cook Inlet at the time. I've got 35 plus years. I hardly want to say how many in the oil and gas business up here. My interest in utilities really started in 1994 when I put my name in for the municipal gas manager when Anchorage acquired Beluga River Field. I didn't get that position, but I then put my name in and was appointed to the MLMP Advisory Commission, MLMP Board. So I continued my work there. I ran for the Chugach Board in the 2009-10 timeframe and have continued working in basically oil and gas. So I understand the business, understand the utility sector, and would look forward to serving another term. And then I went on to serve as Deputy Commissioner DNR, again over oil and gas. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate all of your introductions, gentlemen. Let's begin. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to answer, starting with our first question. Number one of the biggest issues facing Alaska's electric utility is gas supply. With Cook Inlet's dwindling supply, Chugach is analyzing importing liquefied natural gas. What are your thoughts on the LNG imports or other sources of natural gas? Starting with Todd.
Thank you. So a couple things just for everybody to be aware of on the natural gas supply that may not be as apparent is there was an assumption made by the DNR, and this has probably been out there for a couple of years, that there's no drilling in the Cook Inlet beyond 2030. I find that is a fairly ridiculous assumption. I don't know where this came from, but what it leads me to believe is, was it this assumption that caused the gas producers to change their drilling forecasts? Or was it the utilities coming out and stating decarbonization goals that also influenced this discussion? When it comes to solving this natural gas supply, I think we have to look at all these options. I mean, the legislature's heard presentations that it takes 2 years and 60 days to put a well on production. That is not today. Importing LNG is an option we have to look at. It may not be popular, but it's something that we have to do because 82% of the natural gas that we get goes to providing power generation to our customers. Thank you.
Next up, Dan.
Yeah, so I'm I'm an above ground power guy. I'm not a well guy like a reservoir guy like Todd is. But part of growing up in this town is a lot of people, and I've started digging even prior to getting elected to the board on some of these things that are these assumptions. I'd say I was talking to one of the producers, actually CEO of one of the production companies last week, and they had a fairly different perspective on this. So like Todd, I got to dig down to a root cause. Why are we not getting renewed firm gas contracts past 2025? And that's kind of going to be the way I'm going to look at it. If we have to import liquefied natural gas, we have to import liquefied natural gas, and it's going to be very, very, very expensive. There aren't a lot of other solutions. We can throw up some generation that's quick to go up, and that primarily means inverter-based renewables, wind, solar. But that's really just to displace some gas usage. So we need to come find a solution on this for sure, quickly.
Thank you. Next up, Mark.
Thank you. As I mentioned, I came up in 1983. Amazingly, some of my coworkers over here at ARCO were Beluga River production engineers. ARCO at the time could not get my buddies who worked over there to go to work at Beluga because it was viewed as an old played out field in 1983 because Prudhoe Bay was new and Park was new. My point being is that these are old, mature, in many ways depleted fields. I'm a firm believer that we've got to keep the lights on. We've got to have absolute certainty where we're getting gas. And that includes both additional drilling, but primarily I think LNG imports is what's going to bridge us the near term to midterm. Long term, I don't know, but we've got to have imports as a backstop to the fact that we're depleting these fields. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And Sam.
Very bright lady recently said that we need short-term certainty and long-term flexibility. That's my view of our gas supply situation. To keep the lights on, we have to have certainty. Having certain gas supply is becoming much more expensive. Importing LNG is going to be more expensive. Drilling new wells in the inlet is going to be more expensive. We now have economic analysis that indicates other alternatives may be cheaper. We may be able to stretch the life of those fields by taking the gas that we've already have discovered out more slowly. We need to be flexible. We need to plan for all the possible futures. It's not easy, but that's what the situation calls for right now.
Thank you very much. Question number 2. As the issue of future gas supply is debated and discussed, Chugach is also working on adding clean or renewable generation projects to its generation portfolio. How do you see adding renewables in a way that won't drive up rates or compromise reliability? Dan, why don't you kick us off?
So there's really nothing wrong with renewables. In fact, and clarify some terms here. When we talk about renewables today, it generally means two things, wind and solar. We need to include hydro in there too. And hydro, for some reason in Alaska, has become a bad word, but neither here nor there. But we can fill in and we can displace a lot of gas usage by getting reasonably priced hydro and solar. I mean, the Fire Island project is what, 9.6, 9.7 cents a kilowatt hour, which is more than we pay for our cheap power, but not a lot. And MEA's solar, the contract solar, they get up there, I think 6.7. So it can play a role. But we need to use it to play a role to displace gas, because obviously if it's not windy or if it's not sunny, you're not getting either of those two sources. So that's where that kind of fills in. But yeah, and then I've been a hydro guy since I came out of school, and I think we ought to be looking real hard at hydro because it is the firm renewable.
Thank you, Dan. Mark.
May I ask you to repeat the question? Is that
Yes.
legal?
Yes. As the issues of future gas supply is debated and discussed, Chugach is also working on adding cleaner renewable generations projects to its generation portfolio. How do you see adding renewables in a way that won't drive up rates or compromise reliability?
As I mentioned, I'm a longtime oil and gas guy, but I think it's insanity to continue relying solely as we do now, 82% for gas and thermal generation. We've got to build out our renewables. Chugach board and the Chugach staff has been focusing a lot on building our renewable portfolio. It's not easy. It's a lot more difficult to do that than I knew when I first got on the board. But we must try, especially if we start importing LNG, which indeed will be more expensive. It'll make renewables more attractive in a competitive sense. I believe we've got to do both at the same time with a broad and aggressive emphasis towards building our renewable portfolio. So we don't, if we import LNG, have to haul gas needlessly from somewhere else. We ought to be able to make it from the wind, make it from the sun or hydroelectric, as Dan points out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Sam?
Last Friday, out at the university, there was a fascinating presentation by the business school. Kay Copeland, the CEO over at Cordova Electric Cooperative, is in cooperation with Sandia National Labs, other national labs, a really amazing array of people. And the presentation was on the digital twin. The integration of renewables is going to depend on information technology, and doing it seamlessly and cost effectively is going to require that we look at what islanded grids around the world are doing. And we can learn from what the mistakes other people have already made. We can learn from best practices that are already in place. So we have a tremendous generational opportunity to diversify our assets. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Todd?
Thank you. So my perspective on renewables is coming in from the construction industry, where you got to use the right tool for the job. They have their place, but when we're looking at meeting the mission of affordability and reliability, you got to look at firm power sources, and those come from natural gas, coal, and hydro. I mean, if we take the example of January of this year, when we were looking at some very severe cold weather, Fire Island Wind was making less than 1-2% of its total generating capacity, and Eklutna was spooled up to 100%. So just on a fact basis there, we know that some technologies fit that firm, reliable power better than others. I think we also have to be very conscious of what the costs are going to be, because when we start talking about renewables, a lot of these programs are based off of federal tax credits that'll come in the form of inflation. Whereas when we're looking at other costs to be able to implement firm power, these can ultimately drive down the cost of your generating supply based on the abundant resources that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Question number 3. This session, the Alaska Legislature is considering legislation to mandate a Renewable Portfolio Standard, or RPS, targeting 80% renewable energy production by 2040, and including financial penalties for noncompliance. Do you support an RPS? Mark?
I do support, as I voted for the RPS, and the Chugach board issued and approved a resolution supporting an RPS. But we did not state support for penalties as part of that RPS. We are co-ops, and any penalties that we pay will literally be rolled right into our members, out of our members' pockets. There's got to be a better way to incentivize, to promote renewable uptake than paying penalties. So yes, I do support an RPS, but we need to figure out a better way than the penalty.
Thank you, Mark. Sam?
As Mark said, the Chugach board, after long debate, did come out in favor of an RPS. We're not in favor of the RPS. We don't think that penalties are necessary. We don't think that 80% is necessarily the right number. What we do believe is that whatever we can do to decrease the cost of financing, to make our energy market more competitive, is a positive and good thing for the ratepayers, for our members, for the long-term sustainability. No investment advisor worth his salt will tell you to put all of your assets in one security. We have 80% of our assets in one security. We need to diversify.
Thank you. Todd?
Very simply, no. And I don't know that the RPS that we have in the legislature right now is necessarily the only one that everybody in here needs to be worried about. We have a clean energy standard that's the evil twin of the RPS that we've been talking about. When we're looking at these kind of mandates, is you also have to look at, can we actually deliver on this commitment? And if we can't meet the actual percentage that we're going to try to diversify, but then we're going to sign up to commit to doing the installation of these technologies by a certain date, it puts you in a position where now you have to build this infrastructure by a certain time, or else those penalties continue to get imposed into perpetuity. I think it's an irresponsible piece of legislation. Other places around the country that have installed this, up in the Northeast and even into California, their energy costs are through the roof. This is not something that I think we need to pursue.
Thank you, Todd. Dan?
Yeah, I guess keeping it brief like Todd did, I testified against the RPS in front of the Chugach board before Mark and Sam and 4 other members voted for it. It was 6-1, I think, if I remember right. My basic philosophy is that Chugach Electric, MEA, all the railbelt utilities and their consultants have years and decades of expertise in planning the power system. I think it's foolish to have our legislators who can't deal with permanent funds, can't deal with balanced budgets, everything else. They're trying to deal with a very, very technical issue, and I think it's a bad thing to do to box ourselves in. Let the utilities and their resources come up with a solution, and I think that's going to be the best way. Real quick, slightly deviating, Mark mentioned, Sam mentioned Cordova, thanks. And yeah, I'm just going to point out, that was a system that my old company and I personally were right in the middle of. So we did the batteries, we did the run-of-the-river hydros, we did all of the integration there and made it work. And so I know how to do this, and Chugach folks know how to do this, and the old consultants know how to do this. So let them do it.
Thank you, Dan. Question number 4. Serving as a Chugach board member means you are representing the more than 91,000 members of the cooperative. In that capacity, how would you / do you set aside your personal affiliations or biases to make sure you are representing the members? Let's start with Sam.
I was on the board back in the double aughts for a single term. And then I went to work for the Attorney General as a regulatory affairs and public advocate. One of the things that we learned doing forensic examination of the decision-making process of utilities is that all perspectives are valuable. People come to the table with good intentions. Because I think that there is a truth, I don't necessarily believe that it is the only truth. And I work diligently to educate myself, to see what is in the literature, to see what other people are doing and saying. And I have been wrong on and changed my mind about some things because I strive to keep an open and embracing mental state when these issues come up. It's not about personalities. It's about reliability, affordability, sustainability. We have to have a system that works now and into the future.
Thank you, Sam. Todd?
Yeah, so from my experience, I've led risk assessments on some pretty high level stuff in the oil and gas industry, and it requires people to really think critically and ask tough questions of each other. And I think we have to go into it knowing, because at the end of the day, what you're trying to assess is what's the probability and consequence of a certain outcome, whether that's a safety issue, a design issue, a reliability issue. But as long as we're going into it knowing that the mission that we're trying to serve is one where we're trying to make things affordable, reliable, and then as we've talked about with the sustainability, this is looking at the long-term aspects. So when we're doing reliability risk assessment, probabilities require that we dig deep into data, and we kind of have to be agnostic, if you will, of the information that's coming in and using that information as best as we can. So that's the commitment that I'm going to bring, is just the background I have in risk management and some of these higher level areas to be able to look at things through this lens of what is going to be the risk to the business and the mission of the company.
Thank you, Todd. Dan?
Yeah, my 3 favorite words in the English language are I don't know. Don't tell my wife that because she thinks it's I love you. But No, I mean, it was kind of a standard for me when I was hiring engineers at Electric Power Systems that, you know, if I had a guy that came in and knew everything, if I was really desperate, I might hire him, but I'm going to keep an eye on him too, because those guys are scary. Having said this, being in this business for 40 years, I've got a pretty good feel for where things are at. But one of the things I enjoy doing more than anything else is finding somebody who has a fact-based perspective and going and diving deep with them. And that's, you know, you can ask a bunch of people. There's a couple in this room that know this already. But, you know, I'll have to shut my door a lot of times and bang it out with somebody and argue with them to find out what the best solution is. And at the end of the day, when he or she leaves my office, we've got a solution that's better than it was when they walked in. So yeah, not every perspective is the same, but there are a lot of good alternate perspectives out there. So yeah, that's my view of the world.
Thank you, Dan. Mark.
Thank you. You know, the issue of leaving your biases behind or at least tempering them is very, very important when you serve on these boards. I believe our board that we have now, all of the people indeed are intent on doing that. In my background, one thing I left off, I was Turnagain Community Council President, so I've served in that role on the boards of MLNP and then the Advisory Commission, and then on the Chugach Electric Board, and then in my service as Deputy Commissioner DNR. Those were all positions that required me to set aside my biases largely. And so I think I've aspired to do that very much so in my service so far on the Chugach Board. And I do indeed believe it's important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. All right, question number 5 is a long one, so pay attention. The owners of the Eklutna Hydro Project, Chugach, MEA, and the municipality of Anchorage have been studying the impacts of the project on the Eklutna River for the past 5 years. The study is required by what's called the 1991 Fish and Wildlife Agreement, which was signed when the project was purchased from the federal government. The proposed program that was released in October by the owners uses the AWW portal valve to put water in 11 of 12 miles of the Eklutna River. Some groups, such as the Anchorage Assembly and the native village of Eklutna, have called for removing the dam so water flows in all 12 miles of the river. The final program goes to the governor for final approval in early May. What are your thoughts on the two options? The portal valve, which still allows for the use of the renewable energy source, or taking out the dam? Todd, we'll start with you.
Portal valve. Chugach Electric provided a very detailed and or I should say the project team provided a very detailed response back to many of the objections that came back, especially those that came from the Anchorage Assembly. I think it meets the intent of the 1991 agreement, which I think that's important when we're looking at the commitments that we make as a company, is to do what we say we're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Dan.
Yeah, I'm with Todd on this one, portal valve. Again, the hydro resource we've got at Eklutna from a city perspective, from a Chugach perspective, and MEA and every other owner is huge. I mean, that resource is clean, renewable, and it's inexpensive. It's the cheapest power on the system right now. So yeah, you know, portal valve's the best way to go. And again, speaking to experience, I've done one of those at Kodiak at Terra Lake before, so it's doable too. So there you go.
Thank you, Dan. Mark.
I believe this is one of the most difficult policy issues that we've discussed in the Chugach boardroom, and we continue to discuss. In fact, we continue to have meetings. The portal valve is what we've put forward. I'm not going to express preference one way or the other because we're still in negotiations or discussions with various parties on this. The issues around Eklutna is a tremendously valuable clean energy asset, produced 200,000 approximately megawatt hours of power last year. It saved 1.5 billion cubic feet of gas and saved ratepayers about $11 million total. So it's well, we need it right now, but when by chance that it might not be needed and that we could do something more than a portal valve, I'll let others decide that. There's a lot of people involved in this decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Sam.
The last question was about how do we set aside our personal biases? This question is a great example. I grew up in Homer. I sold out to fish as a kid. Grew up on fishing boats. Salmon is a very important part of my life. My freezer's still got fish from last summer in it. We have a process. We have to trust our process. That's where I am. I would love to see a free-flowing Eklutna River with 5 species of salmon having a run. But I don't want to see worthwhile projects go because we don't have load balancing capability that hydro project presents. I don't want to preclude a better answer. Portal valve, taking the dam out, those are not the only options. We're still in the exploration phase. We've been studying for 5 years. There's people coming up with new ideas even today. We'll see.
Thank you, Sam. Question number 6. What is the most economical, long-term, being 10 to 20 years, energy supply path for Chugach? Dan, kick us off.
In a minute, right?
In 1 minute, 60 seconds.
That's a very complicated question. You know, because I don't think the board has looked at everything that's out there. I mean, or maybe they have, but only slightly. I know for a fact that there's a coal plant, and I know that's a dirty word, but if it is, it's because you're thinking about technology that's 30 years old. Coal plant with carbon capture and sequestration that's 6.5 cents bus bar, and they say they can build it in 5 years. Checked out the sister plant. It was built in 4 years in Casper, Wyoming. Hydro is going to be expensive if we build it today, and not necessarily advocating for Watana, but just because Watana has been studied so much, the numbers are there. They're saying the last time they looked at it, but it's been a decade, was 6 or 7 cents a kilowatt hour. I think it'll probably be more than that with all the hoops you have to jump through. But at the same time, we paid 10.5 cents for Fire Island, or sorry, we paid 9.7 cents for Fire Island wind. So it's a tough problem. There's a lot of options out there, and there's a lot of things you have to look at. But part of the thing is we need to quit studying it and come up with an answer and start going too.
Thank you, Dan. Mark.
Thank you. That is a tough question to answer in 30 seconds or a minute. And there isn't a single answer as to the least expensive way to power our communities, our rail belt in the coming years. You know, all you can do, and what we're doing very thoroughly, I believe, at Chugach, is studying the various means, be it imported gas, local gas, solar, wind, and hydro, finding additional hydros to put online. So all I can commit to as a board member, and I think what Chugach would commit to, is we're studying the devil out of where these various energy sources can come from, and then trying to fit them into a rational portfolio that's going to keep the lights on in your house and my house and up and down the grid. So no easy answer.
Thank you, Mark. Sam.
Well, goes without saying, cheapest way may not be the best way. The best way to keep the lights on is by studying our reliability needs, by studying the cost structure that each of these plants presents. There are proposals that would give us cheaper power for the next few years, but then in 7 years, the price goes up dramatically. So I'm reluctant to say this is the right course. This or that project is the right way to solve our future power needs. We haven't talked about geothermal. Not a single person up here has mentioned tidal yet. These are technologies that are emerging. We don't know what the cheapest power plant in 15 years is going to be. We have to keep an open mind. We have to keep a process in place to examine that question continuously.
Thank you, Sam. Todd.
I'll kind of go back to something that Chair Kaysen had shared earlier is maintaining flexibility. But when we look at 10 to 20 years, right, the decisions that we make today are what sets us up for 10 to 20 years down the road. And when we look at firm, reliable power supply, there's really no question when you look at the energy density comparison of what natural gas, coal, and hydro can do for you. And I mean, when you look at the portfolio, we have to look at how we balance those firm sources of power in order to integrate some of these other technologies that frankly only work when the sun shines and the wind blows. So when we're trying to solve this problem, I think when you look at how the resources that we have available, especially in those areas of coal and natural gas or oil, whatever that may be, we have to look at it in terms of how much energy can we get per pound or per cubic foot or whatever unit of measure that we're looking to compare these things against that gets us to the lowest cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. That quandary where you can have cheap, fast, or good, but you can only pick two. Mhm. All right, question number 7. What do you see as some of the major issues or concerns with the rail belt's transmission system? Mark, start us off.
Rail belt transmission up and down the rail belt's important for basically moving power from Bradley Lake, from Eklutna, from here to the MAA region or Golden Valley or Homer. One of the major opportunities is the GRIP funding, and the industry is working very hard and is committed to, I'm trying to get the state to commit to the $206 million match on the GRIP funding. Without transmission, though, with this the transition from thermal generation to renewable generation, be it hydro, be it solar, be it wind, can't effectively occur. So we've got to get the transmission system expanded and improved across the rail belt, up and down the rail belt.
Thank you, Mark. Sam.
Let's keep in mind that Chugach is not in a competitive industry. We are in a cooperative industry. The rail belt is served by 5 independent companies, and we have to cooperate. We need to get input from the DOE. We have input from ASEP. We have relationships with other entities that have expertise, they have priorities, and we need to work with them to find the priorities or the methods that result in the most resilient and the most affordable power supply. Having relationships is a big part of how we are going to determine what the best course forward for our transmission system is. You heard Mark mention the GRIP funding, and I hope the legislature does get its act together and pass the bill that is required for us to get those matching funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Todd.
Yeah, a couple of things that come to mind, and I share the same thoughts as what Chair Kaysen had shared on we are in a cooperative environment, but I also would add too that our first priority is to the 91,000 rate-paying members here at Chugach Electric. So anything that we do in cooperation with looking at the transmission system has to come through that lens. The other concern that I have is there's several bills within the legislature right now that will seek to allow independent power producers onto the grid, that looks to do other things to regulate the transmission system that effectively will dismantle a lot of what the co-op has done to get to where it is today. The independent power producers won't be held to the same standards of reliability. And so when we look at how we integrate those things, I think we have to look at how is that going to be to the benefit of the rate-paying members? How do we make sure that the affordability is still there? And that we're all pulling our part to make sure that we don't have a situation that could end up negative. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Dan.
So I'm going to put an exclamation point on something Todd said. As Chugach board members, our primary responsibility is to our 91,000 members of the board, the members of the co-op. At the same time, it is an interconnected network and we have to work together. Having said that, I was on the Bradley Lake Technical Committee when we built Bradley Lake back in the 90s, 80s and 90s. And that was a cooperative effort amongst the utilities. We can do it. There's a lot of inter-utility politics that kind of get in the way of progress sometimes. But that's one thing that I feel like I bring to the table too that's fairly unique is that now people that are on boards and that are senior members of management and all the utilities up and down are people that I worked with when we were all kids, and that was a long time ago. So yeah, I think it's important to work together. I also think it's really important that we protect our members' interests. So yeah, technically on the transmission system, we've got problems between the Kenai and Anchorage. We've got problems between Anchorage and Fairbanks, stability limits. We actually, when we were generating a lot of beluga, we had problems between beluga. So there are technical reasons for the transmission. I agree with Mark, Sam, and Todd that the GRIP funding would be nice to get because it's going to definitely help with that transmission upgrades.
Thank you, Dan. Gentlemen, you all are blazing through the questions. Thank you very much for keeping it short and concise. This is your reminder. If you have a question.
We
go
have
ahead,
no
raise-
choice. We've got a red card out there.
There it is. Good, good, good. Let me throw this one at you. Electric vehicle registrations in Alaska number in the low thousands, but are growing at a very fast clip. How do you see the rise of EVs providing grid services and value for Chugach members in the future? Let's go ahead and start with Todd.
It's an interesting question, and there was a plant, I believe it was in Illinois, where they were looking to do a very similar kind of transfer and absorb a lot of the transmission and generation to be able to charge EVs, whether that was city vehicles or swapping over long haul truckers to do the same thing. And effectively what that study came out to absorb or say is that they would need the combined power generating capacity of the entire state in order to make that generation capacity available for these long haul truckers. So, I think when we look at EVs, we got to look at them through that lens, right? It's like if that's our method for trying to increase the load on the system, that's one thing. Personally, if you want an EV, go ahead. I'm not going to say anything otherwise. Go get one if you want it. But from the generating perspective, I think those are examples that we need to look at in comparison to what it can do to our responsibility to the members.
Dan, Todd, Dan.
Why are we laughing at me on this? Oh, okay. No, it's okay. You can laugh at me. People do it all the time.
Combine both of your names.
So on the EV issue, it turns out that my partner and I actually were issued a patent 15 years ago or so on a technology similar to this. We actually let it go back, but real quickly, the EVs can integrate into the grid not only seamlessly, but if you're smart about it and the technology continues to develop on the EV side so that it benefits the customer. Again, these are all incremental things though. So one of the proposals I have, and especially for getting through the 5-year window where we're worried about where we're going to provide generation from, is I think we ought to offload the EV charging into the evening hours, nighttime hours when our loads are down. So try to flatten our load factor. And you can do this with a time of use rate. So, and I don't know if Chugach is looking at that right now. They should be, as should every other utility on the state. So move the EV charging from peaks into valleys. It's as simple as that. And then with some of the new technology, like the Ford Lightning has got its, you can power your house with it too. So there could be a rate developed, and it's innovative, but it can be done. This is part of what the patent was about, so that they can, in an outage situation for a rate break, they could actually provide their own power and not lean on the grid when we're trying to get the thing up and started again. I saw the red sign.
Thank you, Dan. Mark.
Thank you. As a committed EV owner, we've got 2 EVs in my family. I've been very interested in how this indeed would affect the grid and how it would be carried. I mean, as Chugach has not had a growing load in terms of its base load for a number of years, I always thought would it not be handy to be able to shift or to add to the load, or at least stop the decline of Chugach load by offloading it onto EVs and increasing the EV fleet across the state. Whether and how much it's going to take in the long term, I don't know, to improve both transmission and distribution, to manage it. but I see it as a very good way of sharing and spreading the base load costs out amongst other users beyond those that we currently have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Sam?
Well, I'll answer Dan's question first. Yes, Chugach is looking at time of use rates. We have a rate case going right now before the RCA, and a time of use rate component is in there. As Mark said, as everyone at the other end of the table has said, you've got peaks and valleys in your load profile, and charging EVs at night is a great way to levelize your load. Tesla started a utility in Texas based on the battery wall. They were going to say that put power into the house while the sun's shining, while the wind is blowing, and use the battery in the house at night. Turns out that's very expensive to do. So while we're looking at EVs as a method of keeping our load from declining, we need to make sure that we keep a close eye on the cost component at the same time.
Thank you, Sam. We have 4 minutes left, so I'm going to take the one last audience question that I got here for you. Starting a business is expensive. Starting a brick and mortar business, even more so. Chugach has the highest startup connection costs of all the utilities combined. Do you have ideas on how to cut or aid small businesses with those costs? Go ahead, Dan.
This isn't a dodge of the question, but I mean, you can cut costs there, but I've had a number of businesses in the state and will probably continue to as time goes on. But the startup cost is difficult. I just did a connection on the MEA system on a meter I've got up there, and it was, I don't know, 10, 15,000 bucks. It's a lot. But what worries me more than the 10 or 15,000 bucks up front is the monthly recurring charge if our rates go up significantly. So again, not dodging the question, Dan, but I think the short-term and long-term rate structure is a lot more important to me, at least, as a business owner than the initial startup cost.
Okay. Mark?
Sure. I don't believe I have an answer as far as how to change our connection costs or processes. I indeed do not want board members to get into that degree of operational detail, I wouldn't think. All I know is that our Chugach board staff are very focused on our mission, and that is delivering cost-effective, safe, reliable power to the members. I'll leave it to them to figure out how to reduce any startup costs. That's a little bit out of my wheelhouse as well.
Yeah. Sam?
One of the fundamental principles of rate making is the cost causer should be the cost payer. That doesn't mean that you have to pay it all at once. Perhaps there can be a program for amortization of those connection charges. I don't know. This is not an issue that we have had staff go out, research, present a thorough and well-reasoned proposal on. I think that it could be. If this is an issue that our members are facing, our potential members are facing, I hope that you will come to the board and articulate that and raise it to the level of an issue where our staff, who is very capable and very well experienced, will come up with better answers than I can give off the top of my head sitting up here before you. Thanks.
Thank you, Sam. And Todd?
So I think one thing to keep in mind is that the Chugach Electric Company has some fantastic people. I mean, they keep the lights on and they keep everything stable. And so if you look at it from the perspective that they're doing everything within their power to maintain the affordability and the reliability, the next thing that we can do as a utility service company should be focused on the legislature. There are 24 legislators that serve the people within our service district. they are all advocating for programs and legislation that is going to drive costs up. And that's a problem. And so as a business owner, you should have a vested interest to know who your legislator is and why they're pushing forward these policies. And then similarly, the board, we should be looking at these policies in a way that will impact our ability to deliver reliable and affordable costs. So that's what I would say to the business owner. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. All right, we are at the top of the hour, so let's go ahead and cut it down to 30 seconds. I'm going to give each candidate to give their closing remarks. Sam, if you would please.
Thanks. And I'll thank you again for inviting us. This is an opportunity to speak and be heard by some of the most important people in Anchorage. The business of America is business, and the chambers of commerce are where businesses meet. I have a lot of relationships with people in the industry, both within and outside of Anchorage, within and outside of Alaska. I've got a pretty good history of being well-educable. I would appreciate if you would consider casting your vote for me in the upcoming. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Todd.
Thank you to the chamber for having us here today, and then thank you also for having, Chair Kaysen as well as for Director Wiggin to be up here. This is the first time that we've all been here in the same place together. I would appreciate your vote for me to be on the board. As I mentioned, I think I can bring a fresh perspective. If you want more information, you can go to our website at votechugachstability.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Dan.
Yeah, I guess I'll start like everybody else did. Thanks for you guys for coming, and thanks for the chamber for inviting us to have this. I think it's good because, energy cost is one of those baseline business costs that we all have that really drives our economic viability up in the state. So it's really, really important. Yeah, and I'll say with Todd, this is good. This is the first time I've been actually able to sit down and talk with Mark and Sam. And of course, Todd and I are kind of running together, votechugachstability.org. Yeah, and please vote for Dan Rogers for Chugach board. I'm kind of the guy that likes doing this stuff and has been doing it for a long time.
Thank you, Dan. And Mark.
Thank you guys very much for the opportunity to present to you and lay out the issues for us. And thanks for your interest. And by the way, if you're interested in this further, come and express your opinion at one of our board meetings or at operations committee meetings that I'm the chair, in terms of members to be heard. Questions about connection costs, bring them on. We would love to hear those things. I would love your vote. I've served one term now, and this is profoundly interesting technical public policy. I did go to Duke mid-career public policy, and it turns out this kind of satisfies that interest that I have. Well, and I will stop at that. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And do vote.
Thank you very much, Mark. All right. Thank you very much, all of the gentlemen up on the stage today for our candidates in the upcoming election. Let's go ahead and give them a round of applause today. Thank each and every one of you for coming. Next week, April 22nd, Assembly members Anna Brawley and Karen Bronga will present a strategic plan to guide alcohol tax funding. On April 29th, we'll meet at the Petroleum Club of Anchorage. That topic will be announced shortly. And please be sure to register for Monday forums by 5 p.m. the Thursday prior. If you would like to submit a proposal for your business to present at a future Monday forum, apply at anchoragechamber.org. Reach out to Tasha. This Thursday, join us at Case Financial for this month's Business After Hours. And I believe that location is actually going to be hosted at Main Event Grill and Catering, and they have a banquet hall off of 76 right behind Mr. Prime Beef. This event will be held at Main Event Grill from 5 to 7. It's the perfect stop for light apps and refreshments, and most importantly, networking among a broad array of industries in a casual but professional atmosphere. For more details and to RSVP, go to anchoragechamber.org. And now the door prizes before we release everyone. First, we have a spring bag of toffee courtesy of Snowberry Cafe. And that is going to Westcott Bott from HDR. Next, a camping cooler bag plus swag courtesy of People AK. And that goes to Matt Stone of HDR. Thick card stock. Well played. We have an additional swag bag courtesy of Chugach Electric. And that goes to Leah Santa Ana, Aspire Realty Group. Did she leave? Oh, she left. Pays to stick around. How about Sonia Laughlin from Santos? All right, our last two is an assortment of items from local woman-owned business, courtesy of the Anchorage Athena Society. And that goes to Hans Thompson, Chugach Electric. There you go. All right, and our last prize is a Yeti Rambler, courtesy of Media 7. And that is plus a $60 49 state gift card, courtesy of Media 7 as well. There we go. Congratulations to Erica Denman. All right, congrats. If you would like to donate a door prize for a future forum, please let a staff member know. Lastly, thank you to our audio visual team from IMIG AV and to the Denina Center staff for their great service. From all of us here at the Anchorage Chamber of Commerce, thank you for joining us. Have a great week. Catch you next Monday.